Hello and welcome to Blue Sunday. Hey, so I've put in Peter Brown. I may as well keep you in from the start, Pete. Sorry about that. No, I must still be sick. You can join us from the start. Hey,
dear.
I had
I'm wondering what's
play.
going on here. My face has changed.
Okay.
All of a sudden, I've become this handsome, good-looking gentleman.
That's it. Vince, this is just for you.
Okay.
Can you hear it?
I think we've got the song playing, Joe.
Yeah, I think so. Do you remember it, Vince, since you didn't pick us?
Yes, I do remember it.
Anyway.
I was trying to catch up to you blokes, but now I've fallen another selection behind, haven't I?
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, we'll leave it playing in the background, I guess, for a minute.
Do you want to try take two?
No, I've had enough. I'm sick.
Okay.
I'm sick as it is, so I'm still not 100%. So I'm going to blame my illness.
Clearly.
Blame my illness.
Oh, well, no one's going to mind too much, Joe, because we've come off a big win over there in the West. And
well, we've only got 7
who would have predicted
on
3 consecutive wins of around, 9 or 10 goals? So
anyway, this is a new intro. So I thought I'd bring Peter in from the start. He gets a bit bored at the back. So anyway, hello, everyone. Welcome to Blue Sunday. As you can see on the screen, you've got myself, Joseph Luzza, here in Bangkok. Mr. Vince Loccisano in whereabouts in Melbourne do you live, Vince? Again, is it?
Does it really matter?
Might to the viewers, and Peter Brown is also in Melbourne. So how are you tonight, Peter?
Yeah, very good. Thanks, Joe. G'day, Vince. Joe.
G'day, Brownie.
Welcome back.
Yes, I must apologise, and I must thank Mr. Rocco Loccisano for last week.
Rocco Loccisano now. I didn't realise he was a relative of mine.
I'm going mad.
This is going from mad to madder.
He's your. I'm looking.
How about Rocco? How about Rocco Stinetti?
No, listen, Vince Stinetti. I'll give you different things. Anyway, people know who I'm talking about. So look. As you know, we're on Facebook and Twitter, and we're on the Jumper Punch channel. That I do know. It's a review show. We're going to look at all the matches, but we specifically want to talk about Carlton and their fantastic victory over at Optus Stadium. Every time I say Optus, I think of Princess Park, because at one stage, wasn't it Optus Oval or something? It's had so many names. To me, it's still Princess Park. So anyway.
That's right.
So, look, I'll just put this up. Don't forget, as we rely on viewers, so don't forget to like us, subscribe and share. Tell all your family, friends, Carlton supporters, any supporters, I don't care. We can take it all. I've given Vince a new name. Peter brought him on from the start, so it doesn't really matter. Also, just very quickly, this show revolves on participation of not only just me, Vince and Peter, but of people in the audience. So please, please, please give us your feedback, questions. I'm not going to put up high. We all know that we're here. So, yeah, that's just it. And lastly, this show is proudly sponsored by my company, Retired Working For You Tours. If you are planning or thinking of coming to Thailand, in specific, Bangkok, Southern Thailand, or not even the north of Chiang Mai, give me a bell. I'm more than happy to help you, even if you don't book a tour with us. So I've had a few questions. How's the belly? Good to see. I must admit, last Sunday, I thought the earth had fallen in. And I just sat down to watch Carlton and Hawthorn. First 2 minutes of the game, I thought, I don't feel too good. And next thing I know, I'm not going to be as descriptive as I should be, but it was coming out both ways, and I was. Sounds
like the earth didn't fall in. It sounds like your digestive system did.
it caved in, and so I actually couldn't move from the toilet. I was in so much pain, and my girlfriend had gone out, and when she came home, she found me in the middle of the bathroom floor, and she was going to call an ambulance at one stage, and I managed to just hop in the shower, clean myself up, and I spent 2 days in hospital. And then I had another relapse on Thursday.
Wow.
So I was being ill again. They don't know what it is. So they sent me to the infectious diseases hospital. And I wasn't too sure about staying there because I'm thinking, hang on, if I don't have an infectious disease, I might pick one up. So I had a lot of tests and all that. So they still, what was the medical diagnosis? I had a tropical disease. So there you go. So I don't know what that means.
Well, there you go, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. You too can experience all of this by going to Thailand and booking a trip now with Retired Working for You Tours.
Well, I'm sure. First.
What a great advertisement for going to Thailand you've just given us, Joe.
Well, come over and get an exotic bug.
Yeah.
Well, I lost, as Darren rightly pointed out, I've lost weight. I lost 5 kilos.
Wow.
I wish you wouldn't give them to me every time you lose them, Joe.
No, first time I've been very ill here in, 10 years. So that's not too worrying. But anyway,
no good.
I don't want to talk about my illnesses and things like that. So without further ado, let's get on to this week's matches, Vince. So
yes, indeed.
Was it Thursday night?
Thursday night we started with a big match at the MCG between Richmond and Sydney, which was touted as being Buddy Franklin's, most likely, his last game at the MCG. Expecting, of course, to retire at the end of the year. And unfortunately for the Sydney Swans, they didn't quite get over the line. Richmond had a fantastic second half to get over them. They were 3 goals down at halftime, the Tigers. But,
I know. I saw that.
Piled on amazing. 7 goals, 10 to only 3 goals, 3 in the second half. So ended up prevailing by 13 points. 12-16, 88 to Sydney's 11-9, 75.
Friday night, Vince. What happened on Friday? Tell us.
Friday was a great game between the Western Bulldogs and Collingwood. Talk about momentum shifts. The Doggies started off very well indeed, but then in the middle part of the game, Collingwood really put on the afterburners and kicked 10 goals in the second and third quarters combined, and ended up having a big 25-point lead at three-quarter time, which was reduced back to 12 points by the final siren. So the Doggies started off well and finished off well, but it was that middle part of the game that cost them big time. So Collingwood 13-11, 89, finding another way to win yet again over the Western Bulldogs 11-11, 77. And as Paul Sebastiani would say, Lord Nelson.
What's that mean?
Well, it's just a commentator's call every time the score's 11-11, 77. Don't ask me.
Okay.
Ask Paul.
Okay.
It's something that we can't used to say all the time every time the score is 11-11, 77.
Let's
anyway,
go to Saturday.
Moving right along. Saturday, well, this was probably the most predictable result of the round. Brisbane Lions over there in the Gabba. It's a real fortress over there for them. And they got well over the West Coast Eagles. 16 goals, 20. A little bit of inaccurate kicking there. I'm sure they want to correct that come finals time. But 16-20, 116 to the West Coast Eagles, 5-5. 35, and not much to really celebrate there for them.
Okay, the next game.
That game with West Coast and Brisbane, that's the first time I've seen odds of that magnitude on a football game.
That's crazy odds, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, you're 34.
What was Brisbane, about $1.01?
Yeah.
No less.
Yeah.
$0.00001 or something. Anyway.
Oh, well, yeah.
Let's move on.
Anyway, next game was over there at Giant Stadium in Western Sydney. It was a really entertaining game, this. Hawthorn put up a really good effort, but inevitably failed to score enough to overcome the GWS Giants on their home turf. 12-13, 85 to Hawthorn's 10-12, 72. And the Giants are really on a roll at the moment and pressing for a spot in the 8.
They are. Followed by, I started to watch this game.
Well, this is on Saturday night, the game against, the game at Marble Stadium between St Kilda and Melbourne. Melbourne prevailing, 12-7-79. The best part about that result for them would be the fact that they scored more goals than points for the first time in God knows how long. To St Kilda's 8-10-58. And look, considering Max King was off the ground within the first, minute or so?
17 seconds.
I think that Melbourne still have some pretty big concerns because St Kilda is really teetering at the moment on the brink of slipping out of the 8. I don't think that they're any sort of threat to a premiership, that's for sure. And Melbourne would need to really pick it up from here on in to be a threat in the finals. They cemented 4th position with this win, but I still think they've got a lot of work to do. Yeah,
I think
Sorry, Peter.
Oh, sorry. Right. No, I was just going to say, I think the score actually, sorry, mate. But I think the score actually flatters the game more than anything else because.
Yeah, I was going to say that. And I've got a comment on that at the end, so keep going.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I was just going to comment in and around King. I was out to dinner during the week and I was discussing it with a couple of boys that are associated with St Kilda. And they rate him fairly highly. But I said to him, well, he has trouble staying on the park, and he's injury prone, and and all that sort of thing. But but he's kicked 3 and 4 each week and stuff like that. Well, they're going to struggle now, I think, St Kilda, unless
he's out for the season. It just got announced on TV. He's out for the season.
I know they've got big hopes on Cavanetti holding down that position in the forward line for him. But it certainly will unsettle their balance, no doubt.
Yeah, that
I don't think they have much choice.
He played for the Carlton Reserves last year, that Cavanetti.
Yeah.
You know that? Didn't pick him up. Anyway, next game, Vince.
Next game was at the Adelaide Oval, and it was, raised a few eyebrows at half time to see that the Gold Coast Suns were actually in front of Port Adelaide by a goal, but nevertheless in front, 6-3. 39 to 5-3, 33 at half time. But then, my word, when Port Adelaide put their foot on the throttle, don't they know how to kick some goals? They kicked 9 goals to 1 in the third quarter to put the result of the game beyond doubt. And in fact, slowed up towards the end. Gold Coast kicking 4 goals to 2 in the last quarter. But inevitably, Port Adelaide, way too good. 16 goals, 10, 106 to the Gold Coast Suns, 11-7-73, and big question marks about their chances for the 8 now.
My comment in and around that is that very simply this. I think the two sides that have been outstanding all year, which is Collingwood and Port Adelaide, I think they've got everything to lose now, and all the sides that are coming through now have got nothing to lose. So it's going to be interesting as to whether they can sustain their commitment to being at the business end of the season. And this is starting to loom now. Players get fatigued towards the end of a fairly long season. And as a result of that, I think you'll find that these sides might start to falter slightly.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. Okay, Vince, first game today down at Pork Barrel Park. Aren't they building a fortress down there? By God.
Pork Barrel Park.
Put taxpayers' money at waste. Anyway.
All right. Well, I think they call it Cardinia Park down there at Geelong, but nowadays it's GM HBA Stadium.
Whatever.
All these sponsors that sponsor grounds, I don't know. Well, they were way too good for North Melbourne in the end. 19 goals, 11, 125. Pretty much double the score. North Melbourne 9-9-63. They were down by about that much in the second quarter, in fact, North Melbourne. And they
killed them.
Yeah, I think Geelong might have put the cue in the rack a little bit, but North Melbourne, at least to their credit, kept fighting on and put up a more respectable score than what it was at quarter time.
I don't know if you watched that match, but at the end of it, they had some big presentation for Zach Toohey.
Yes,
and
well, that's because he surpassed Jim Steins' record of number of games played. So he's now the, I guess, the Irishman who holds that honour of playing more games of AFL football than any other Irishman. But in Zach's own words, I think you'll find that he's he's almost bashful about receiving that sort of gong because he regards Jim Stynes as the real hero and the real pioneer for Irish footballers. And he spoke very modestly and with a lot of humility.
I think along with that, though, I mean, it's consecutive games too, isn't it? That the Jim Stynes actually holds rather than the other Irish boys that have actually played. So,
I think Jim played something like 244, if I'm not mistaken, 244 consecutive games. I can't see anyone surpassing that in the future. That's just a huge amount of games.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Congratulations.
Second last game. Tanya will be very happy, I'm guessing.
I'm guessing too because I haven't seen her this afternoon. She's been at work. But yes, Essendon getting off to a fast start, and it just goes to show you how important it is to get off to a good start in games. They rocketed past Adelaide in the first 15 or 20 minutes before Adelaide could settle down a bit more. But it was a top win by the Bombers today, I thought. Adelaide were very much a threat there today, and they still found a way to win. So well done to them. They've broken a mini streak of losing over a couple of games in a row. 17-13, 115 to the Adelaide Crows, 15-7, 97, and that's a really good 18-point win for the Bombers, and it keeps them well and truly in the 8.
Sorry, Pete.
Yeah, I think the third quarter for the Bombers was the one that busted it open for them, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Well, I think they pretty much matched each other in the third quarter. I think you'll find that they both scored a couple of goals each. That's all it was, 2 goals 4 to 2 goals 3. And then Adelaide actually came back in the last quarter, kicking 6 goals 2 to Essendon's 3 goals straight. It was the second quarter where they got away a little bit, 5 goals to 2 in the second quarter, Brownie.
Mm-hmm.
So Essendon went in at half time with a 37-point lead, and that's what really helped them to win this game.
And as Sandra says, let's get on to the big game today.
Well,
we had Vince,
the Mighty Blues do it again, 14-14-98 to the Fremantle Dockers on their home turf, 6-9-45. I thought they were insipid, really. Fremantle, they didn't give much of a yelp. I think our pressure made them crack. I don't think they could handle it. And we'll talk about the game in detail, but right from the very first bounce, I think you could tell that Carlton were going to be superior in the pressure stakes, and Fremantle couldn't handle it. 4 goals 3 to 3 points at quarter time, and from then on we never looked back. Probably the second quarter, 2 goals each, so we held that lead. I think it was a 25-point lead at half time. And then we really surged ahead with 6 goals 4 to only a point in the third quarter. And that third quarter put the game absolutely beyond doubt. And, in fact, we had a stretch of something like 8 consecutive goals from about halfway through the second quarter till the end of the third quarter. And they were just no match for us. And got to give them credit where credit's due, Joe. A lot of people probably were thinking, well, we've only beaten the Gold Coast and Hawthorn, and maybe Fremantle's in that same bracket. Maybe they're a bottom 6 side this year. But who knows? I just thought we were very impressive today. Very impressive indeed.
Yeah. You can. I actually disagree, but anyway, you can only beat the team that you put up.
Yeah,
I thought we made a lot of basic mistakes. If you're going, and I'm talking only if you're going to play against the if you want to come out and beat the Collingwoods and Port Adelaides of this competition, the number of fumbles, and it wasn't a wet day. The sun was out. The fumbles, the handballs that missed targets, the kicks that went overhead. Good teams, and Peter will tell you this, good teams will punish you if you make mistakes. Good teams, you'll make mistakes, but the name of the game is called football, and the amount of times we handballed to players under more pressure than the person who had the ball was horrifying. It was like no one wanted to kick the bloody ball.
I thought the difference between the two sides, particularly the first and second quarters, was that we actually scored from turnovers. So
Exactly.
It was a nervous start from Carlton, I thought. I mean, we didn't score until about the 13 or 14 minute mark of the first quarter. We then put on 3 or 4 goals pretty quickly from turnovers. However, the one thing that was pleasing was that we were able to maintain not only scoreboard pressure, but also the intensity around the ball. So
that was good.
Really
that was excellent.
pleasing. Yeah. We locked it in virtually. I think Fremantle, from memory, I think they only got about 3 or 4 entries in the first quarter, purely and simply because we'd locked it down in our forward line in that first quarter. So, but yeah, look, it was a nervous start. Once they got their feet and we started to create opportunities from their turnovers, we started to break the shackles a bit and start to surge forward.
I'm pleased with our effort. I'm just saying, if you're going to play better teams, they won't they will punish those mistakes, right? Fremantle, I thought Vince was right. I thought they were very insipid today. They
Fremantle
fell over, they missed targets. Like Walters normally kills us. And you know, considering that Luke is that his name?
Luke Darcy. Yeah.
No.
Considering what's the ruckman's name?
It's Sean Darcy.
Considering he had 50-odd tap-outs, surely to God he must have been able to find one of his midfielders. Yeah, well, surely to
huge
God.
Amount.
I mean,
one of the concerns last week from Vince's side of things was that he thought that the 2 big ruckman, Jackson and Darcy, were going to be in a situation where they were going to be dominating. The pleasing part was that we actually locked it down with the centre clearances and were able to then ascend from there rather than allow them to get away with clear possessions. And I think you'll find that most of the time that we won it out of the centre was because we sharked their tap-outs and were able to capitalise on them not working around the ball as hard as what we were.
Yeah, probably. Okay, before we get to that, we've started to get into the game. So, Vince, let's just quickly go through the ladder and then some stats, and then we'll do our analysis.
Yep, sure.
So the top 8, go through it, please.
Okay, well, we see yet again Collingwood and Port Adelaide both winning and keeping their record intact at the top of the ladder. Collingwood clearly on percentage ahead of Port Adelaide. So if Port are going to get top spot, they'd need Collingwood to drop a game. But really, I don't think it bothers either one, because if you finish first or second, that's all that really matters, isn't it? You're both going to get a home final in your qualifying final. So Collingwood and Port look like they've got those 2 positions all but sewn up, but you never know. Still 7 matches to go. Yeah. Brisbane, who are the only real threat to those 2 positions, they're 2 games further back on 12 wins with a very healthy percentage, especially after beating West Coast by as much as they did. 133.2 is their percentage. And they are not only 2 games behind Collingwood and Port Adelaide, but they're 2 games clear of Melbourne. So you'd think that they're just going to be in third, wouldn't you, Brownie? It looks like, they've got clear road ahead of them and clear road behind them. Melbourne's secured 4th position for the time being, having beaten St Kilda. So they're now a game clear on 10 wins from 3 teams who are all on 9 wins. And that's Essendon, who've gone up to 5th as a result of beating Adelaide today. St Kilda has dropped to 6th. Western Bulldogs have dropped to 7th. And they are 2 points clear of last year's premiers, Geelong, who have now snuck into the 8. And I think they've got a pretty good run of games, especially at their home ground in this last 7 weeks. So I actually expect Geelong to finish not only in the 8, but maybe even elevate themselves up to 7th, 6th or 5th. Okay. But anyway, they're currently in the 8, thanks to that draw that they had against Sydney. And their percentage is fairly healthy on 117.7, whereas the 3 teams above them are all on percentages vastly less than that. So Adelaide is just outside the 8 now, also with GWS on 32 points. They're in 9th and 10th positions, half a game out of the 8. Another half a game further back now to the Mighty Blues. We're up there. We're starting to contend again. And we're only one game and about 10 percentage points away from Geelong. So, you know, who knows? If we can string a few more wins together, funnier things have happened. So we're on 30 points together with Richmond, who also won on Thursday night. So they're also on 30 points, but with a vastly worse percentage. Then you've got teams that I think now are going to really struggle to make any case for a position in the 8. Gold Coast on 7 wins, Fremantle on 7 wins, Sydney on 6.5 wins on 26 points. And then there's 10 points clear to Hawthorn on 4 wins, North Melbourne on 2, and West Coast on 1. Who would have thought that last year's grand finalist Sydney would be in the bottom 4 after having played 16 of the 23 matches this year?
Yeah, I don't know. Okay, let's get to some stats. Have a go, Vince. Look at Carlton's on the right. Sorry, I didn't have time.
Yeah, no, that's all right.
Left.
Look, without assessing the stats in any great detail, I think you can see there that we just won the vast majority of the ball. We had more possessions, more kicks, more handballs. We had more inside 50s. I think we had 60 to 40 something.
Yeah.
The only area that Fremantle won was in those hitouts, where a total of 70 hitouts, of which Sean Darcy got 58 of them. And our hitouts were in the teens. So, as Brownie said, we were very, very good at sharking the ball away from their ruckman. And when you look at the clearances, the centre clearances were almost even. It was the clearances around the ground that we actually won the majority of, and the stoppage clearances. So, I think our midfield did a very, very good job of roving to their ruckman. And, obviously until we get a proper ruckman in there, like Pitnet or De Conning, we're going to have to continue to do that. But the rest of the stats are all pretty clear. A lot of them were quite close, in fact, marks and contested marks, intercept marks, etc. It was all pretty even. We might have just shaded them a little bit. Tackles were all pretty even too. But when you have a look at the tackles inside 50, that was a very telling stat for mine. We had a lot of our small forwards putting tackles on their defenders and putting them under pressure, whereas they didn't do that to us. Other than that, I think the disposal efficiency was pretty even. I think that really told the story, didn't it, Brownie?
Yeah, I think so. I think particularly more so our stoppage around the ground. Their persistence and their tackling, I thought, was telling, particularly more so in the first and second quarters. Third quarter, I think Fremantle had a little bit of a patch there. And in the last quarter, when the game was iced, Carlton then sort of walked away from it. Interestingly enough, what it did show me, though, was that, and the question that I had over it, and I pose it virtually to you guys as well as our viewers, where's it been?
That's right.
Yeah,
we've gone, 13 or 14 weeks without really persisting to that level, and now we're in a situation where we're starting to see reward for that work. And it's clearly they're working a lot harder. Even guys like Mackay and these guys, of which I was highly critical of earlier in the season, are now starting to work harder at contesting. And to be perfectly honest with you, one of the things that I thought of throughout the game was whilst Young and Silvani were battling as best they possibly could against opposition that was clearly higher than them, although Young did, I thought, contest okay. It just meant that our midfielders and our guys around the ground, our wingers and stuff like that, small forwards, have to work harder around the ball. And to me, that was really, really telling, I thought.
Yep.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Look, I just felt that our pressure was far better than theirs for a lot longer. I think that their pressure matched ours to a large extent in the first quarter when they could see that we were really applying a lot of pressure on them. They tried as best they could to match that. And I think both teams were well over 210 on the pressure meter, which is elite when it comes to measuring pressure acts. But then they dropped right off, and you could start telling that their possessions were a lot more scrappy, that they weren't hitting targets. Now, Joe, you made the point that you thought that we also made a lot of skill errors and missed targets, etc. But I thought that we recovered a lot better from those situations than they did,
I think so too,
we created a lot more scoring opportunities with as Brownie pointed out, scoring from turnover.
I just got frustrated with the amount of silly handballs that we were doing to players in worse positions. Another thing, I mean, I watched nearly every game last week, and I've watched nearly every game this week, right? And I'm telling you now, and I had a friend here watching it on Friday night, and he was English, and I was trying to explain to him the game of football, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said to me, gee, there's a lot of scrums. And I'm like, yeah, there are too. There's so many players around the ball these days. It's like watching under 12s, and then people get caught, and the umpire goes, oh, my ball, my ball, my ball. I mean, he said to me, he said, it's not very flowing, is it?
It's interesting. Interestingly enough, guys, one of the things that I've discovered just recently, particularly with the game, is that the player with the ball has given every opportunity to try and get the ball free and out. Unless it's locked in correctly, you can do a 360 pirouette being held by somebody in a tackle and still be able to get the ball out. Now, the umpire is letting the ball play on, or the game play on, unless it's a blatant throw or something like that, to try and shake the ball loose. And someone said something very interesting at the start of the season. The way that the game is played now, as you indicated then, Joe, where it's like Little League, right? So we all go over here, and then we all come back here, and then we all go over there. It's the side that's actually prepared and is able to shake the ball loose and then be able to counter-attack in that situation is going to win the game of football, because no longer is it a one-on-one contest with your opponent. It's now it's who can actually be able to shake the ball loose the quickest and get it to an advantage. So, and you're right.
But they let too many players get away with. I mean, I know everyone says, it's dropping the ball, but the actual rule is incorrect disposal, right? And today I noticed so many players dropping the ball and throwing the ball. I think they only got pinged once or twice. I'd love to know I'd love to know the actual number of free kicks, because it just doesn't flow like it used to. I mean,
Interestingly enough, Joe, one of the contests which stuck in my mind was the one that Martin had in the middle of the ground. If you recall, it was a loose ball. He came in. It was a legal hip and shoulder. It was a fair dinkum contest between two players. And they were both at it. They were both at the ball. The ball was shaken loose, and we actually gained possession through that because we had another runner that was able to pick up the crumb, and away we went. However, that is probably a rarity in the game as today. One of the things that I find interesting is that if Vince is going for the ball, usually the player will allow him to pick the ball up and then all of a sudden jump all over the top of him. Well, it's now got to the point where if you jump on top of that player, then that player's been given every opportunity to try and shake that ball loose now, legally, I'm saying, and not an incorrect disposal. But you can stand up in a tackle and be spun around a full 360 and be able to still get either foot or hand to the ball and be able to still get it out so that the ball can go on. But And that's changed in the last probably 8 to 10 weeks within our game. Originally, they were getting pinged for it. Now it's actually being able to get the ball flowing because there was too many scrimmages or scrums, if you want to call them, within the game itself. And
But yeah,
look, the other
Sorry,
interesting thing I thought of overall the game was that no one side really controlled the middle of the ground. Whilst we had our midfielders winning around the ground, we really didn't have the corridor all that much, and neither did they. There was the odd occasion that we were able to go through it, but both sides were still playing around the wings.
So, Peter, you're the ex-player here. Do we continue with Lewis Young and Jack Silvani, or do we race back Pitternet and or De Koning as soon as they're fit? Thoughts?
Well, it's interesting because I obviously Pitternet is not right, and to bring him back early might be detrimental to the side. The first one I'd bring back is De Koning. I'd bring him straight back into the side if he's right to play. If he's not right to play, then don't play him.
Well, he was named, but then he became a late withdrawal. I think that's
he failed the fitness test.
Probably the second. I think that might be the second week in a row that's happened.
Yeah. Well, look, whilst I'm disappointed that we don't have a top line ruckman, if our midfielders and our on ballers are smart enough, what they will do is shark it off the other ruckman. All we've got to do is make the contest. However, I do make this point though. In the forward line, I thought Harry Mackay's work around the ruck contests were better this week than they ever have been. I thought his body work was a lot better. He was able to impose himself within those contests. I don't think he's good enough to go around the ground in terms of centre bounce and be able to have the tank to get him around the ground. But I thought his work in our forward line was a lot better.
And even when he was around the ground, he can take a big mark when he wants to.
Oh, absolutely. If he gets a run and jump at it, he's got long arms. They hang down below his knees, and I think he'll be in a situation where it'd be very hard to stop. And he's very much a confidence player, as is a lot of players. If his confidence is there, he'll have his tail up, and you know, there is a lot of things he can do. Last week he showed signs of being able to provide a contest at both in the air and at ground level. And I thought that work was really, really good. And as you know, I gave him votes last week. I thought this week's work was perhaps more towards what Harry's is expected of Harry. And there was comments made in the commentary about, you know, all the Blues fans will be really, really pleased that Harry's up and about and all that sort of thing. I'll wait and see. I'll wait with my judgment on that to see whether he comes up against top backman before I make a comment in that situation.
Talking of backman, what have we said to Jacob Wiedering? Because his form has gone from here to here, hasn't it?
Certainly, he's shown the more Wiedering that we've learned to expect from him. I think, well, what has been said, maybe someone might have tapped him on the shoulder and said, hey, listen, there's some kids that are going to be pushing for your spot. If you're not going to bloody well pull your finger out and get on to bloody, you know, doing what you're supposed to be doing. I thought he was reading the ball a lot better. Although I think over the last couple of weeks, Wiedering hasn't had their top line forwards, have they? Has he? I think Kemp and McGovern and these guys have had more of their top forwards rather than Wiedering. So Wiedering's been freed up a little bit.
See, McGovern got injured again.
Yeah, he got a corky. It was friendly fire, I'd say he'll be out, and Kennedy will be out as well. Kennedy's done his knee.
Yeah. I don't know how bad they have. I think they've got to wait for scans. But he had
I
a
reckon
brace.
I reckon it'll be a 6 to 8 week.
Yeah, he had the brace on. Well,
Yeah.
hopefully George Hewitt can come in and play like he did when he first joined the club.
Losing
well,
McGovern, I think, will be a bigger loss for us for next week against Port Adelaide than any other player because I think he's provided some real solidity, if you like, in that back line, some real spine in that defence, rather than just having Wiedering.
Interestingly enough, he went forward and kicked a goal today.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought
in fact, Fremantle were asleep to that. He came past for the good old hand pass and slammed it home from about 55 metres out. And, that good on him. I mean, that's what good teams do. And, if the opposition's not awake to it, why not? He was obviously going to be a better kick for goal from that distance than the player that gave it to him.
Absolutely.
I think it might have been Owies. So Owies was always going to struggle from that distance. And McGovern was smart enough to come down. I thought it was very clever play by McGovern.
Well,
I thought so too.
I mean, that's what he gets paid for, isn't it? That's what we recruited him for, was to do that sort of work.
Yeah.
What he's produced in the last probably 8 to 10 weeks prior to last week and this week was substandard compared to what he's supposed to be doing. Now, is it going to be another case of, he's just starting to hit a little bit of form? He's going to be out for the next 4 weeks or something like that with a deep corky or something. Who knows? It depends on how he comes up and it depends on how he recovers. But you can scratch out Kennedy, I'd say, for the next 6 to 8.
Yeah, which is a bit of a blow. But I mean,
Hewitt.
These things happen.
Hewitt came on as a medical sub, and I just thought that Hewitt's impact wasn't all that great, to be honest. And the game was just about all but over by the time that he was able to come on. So I won't read too much into that. I mean, the other guys in the midfield were doing the work anyway. Chera, Walsh, and those guys were doing more of the work.
Cripps. Yeah.
Peter, how hard do you think it would be to come on as a sub? So you're seeing that you're sitting there watching, and obviously you're keen to get out there, right? And then all of a sudden you're expected to do something. Do you think that? I personally don't know why they have a sub. I just think you should have 5 interchange and that's it.
Well,
just 5 interchange or 6 interchange and that's it.
Interestingly enough, Joe. Yeah, interestingly enough, most of the subs that have been in most games tend to be midfielders, and you don't see a key positional as a sub unless it could be a backman or something like that. But it's usually small forwards or a midfielder. Now, how hard is it? Well, depending on what the situation is that you put into, and whether you're going to have an impact or whether you're not going to have an impact. If you recall, we had Paddy Dowd for 3 or 4 weeks there, and he was getting less than a quarter of game time, and he was still able to pick up 8, 9, 10 possessions coming into the midfield. So I would suspect that being the sub, it's not that simple. It's not that easy, because you've got to.
Yeah.
I mean, for you to retain your spot, you've got to have an impact on the game. You've got to be able to create something and then be able to, in that short period of time, whether it be a quarter or whether it be a half of football, you've then got to be able to be consistent enough to push someone else out the side.
Yeah, well, George got 5 possessions in that last quarter, 1 kick and 4 hand passes, and he laid 2 tackles. And I think you'll find that that's the second week in a row that he's come on as a sub. Last week, he got 6 possessions, which were all hand passes, and he laid 3 tackles. So how much more of an impact can you expect one player to have when he only comes on for with a quarter to go?
You can't.
Well, that's what I'm saying, because you're sitting there watching, and you'd know, Peter, even when you get dragged, the first thing you want to do is you want to get back out there, right?
Yeah.
And you want to, you just want to get into the action, and you're just waiting for either someone to get injured or the coach to go, oh, the tactical sub, let's replace Vince with Peter. I think it'd be very hard. Well, it's not really a position, but I think it'd be a hard role.
In the end, it worked out well for us. Because
Yeah.
Kennedy's a midfielder, replaced by Hewitt, who's another midfielder. So it probably, that's probably what justifies the selection of a midfielder as your sub most weeks.
Probably. I'm interested in what both of you think of Jack Martin. He does not look fit. To me, he doesn't look fit.
Oh,
I know he did a few things.
He's had some impact though in the last 3 or 4 weeks, hasn't he?
Yeah, but
do you think
he definitely needs a full pre-season under his belt? There's no doubt about that. But I've got to say, with the things that he's shown on a couple of occasions, I'm thinking he's well. Put it this way: he's going to demand a reasonable backman. If he doesn't, he'll hurt you. Because he's not physically, you'd call a physical player, although that hip and shoulder today was very impressive. What he is he's a smart player. And
creative.
When you've got smart players around the ground, it's not necessarily it's so much what you do initially, it's what you've done prior that can have an impact on the game. So with a good pre-season under him, he's only got a couple of seasons left in him, I would imagine. And if you can get him fit, super fit for next year, he could be a very dangerous forward. Our forward line definitely looks a lot more dangerous or sharper with Martin being fit. That
Cunningham helps.
Oh, absolutely. And look, Cunningham didn't have a massive impact on the game, but let me tell you, he does actually balance it up nicely. And
he's got some skill, that boy. He's got some real skill.
And even Fogarty, I think Fogarty's added a little bit too in the forward line.
Fogarty, yes, is well worth keeping in the side. There is no doubt about that. I think there was a couple of times that Fogarty actually hit the pack running pretty hard in contests. And I thought, they're starting to actually use their brains and get.
And that's what we've been calling for, isn't it? I mean, that's what we were complaining about with guys like Durden and Motlop, that they weren't hitting the packs hard at full pace. We saw Fogarty do that today.
But he was, and he got that freak goal, where he hit the pack and, got the ball onto his...
Quickly put it onto his boot and kicked the goal with it only a couple of metres out from goal. It's very clever.
Even Akers was doing a bit of that too. There's a couple of occasions that Akers hit the pack pretty hard at full tilt.
Yeah.
Look, there was a couple of other things, a couple of little minor things that stood out in my mind. Cottrell's bloody chase down. He didn't get him, but he put enough pressure on him to
affect the kick.
Yeah, absolutely. And it was only a small thing. Jack Martin's smother in that last quarter, was it last quarter or third quarter? I can't remember what it was, but that showed to me that he was still prepared to do the hard stuff.
And you don't get a stat for that, do you? I mean, a lot of those 1%ers, you don't get stats for smothers and positioning yourself in between, your opponent or an opponent and your player, so that your player can take a mark uncontested. Those sorts of things, you can't get a stat for it. But geez, they're important little 1% acts, aren't they?
Well, what I've been saying for a long, long time now, it's not your top 10 that are going to win you a premiership. It's going to be the next 15 or 16 players that's going to do it for you. And they're the ones that are prepared to work hard, and they're the ones that are prepared to do the 1%ers. Because the 1%ers with all that up in the corner of football to be able to have the lead going in. So they're the things that are really, really important. It's the shepherd. It's the smother. It's and a skill of the game that's come into it of recent times. I don't know whether you've noticed it or not, you guys, but the hand at a strategic moment of the disposal or something like that, or knocking the ball out of an opponent's hand, or creating that sort of opportunity is something that's coming into the game. I don't know if you noticed or not, but the Fremantle guy, and I can't remember what his name was, he got a free kick or a mark or something in the middle of the ground, and he was called play on. Walsh snuck around from behind him and took the ball out of his... Now, I would suspect that probably 13 weeks ago, the umpire would have given us a 50-metre penalty.
50-metre penalty, yeah.
But he did...
I was saying that on the telly.
And Walsh was able to knock it free. We got possession of the ball and was able to score. And it's that on-ball pressure. It doesn't matter whether it's a hand in there, whether it's a smother in there, or whether it's a shepherd here, or whether it's a tackle on your hands and knees, or whatever it is that you do. They're the things that can actually inspire your players around you to be able to create and do better.
There's a great question that you've just put up there, Joe, from DC. Not sure what DC stands for. Maybe it's Don Corleone. Like to know what Voss has said to the players to change their mindset. Yeah, I guess we all would, because they have definitely come out and played a lot more selfless football. A lot more sacrificial acts have come into the way we play, and we're playing a winning brand all of a sudden. I wonder where this was, for the previous 10 weeks before we played Gold Coast. Now we put
contract negotiation time, Vince. Contract negotiation time.
Oh, I don't know about that. You can't get a whole team to play like that because one or two of them have got contracts coming up. It's clearly. Something's clicked with this group. I don't know what or why. Maybe it was when they were berated by the supporters on their way down the race after they lost to Essendon. I don't know.
Yeah.
But something's triggered them, and something's made them decide as a group to really get together and play for each other, because that's what it looks a lot more like these days. Well, in the last 3 weeks, anyway.
To answer DC's question, I don't care what he said. Just keep it up.
What do you think, Brownie? What do you put it down to?
It was interesting. I looked at his. It might have been his 3/4 time huddle, or it might have been the quarter time huddle. I'm not sure, but he seems a lot more animated than what he has been. Earlier in the season, when he was actually coaching safely, I'll put it that way. He definitely wasn't as animated as what he has been in the last 2 weeks in the huddle.
Yeah.
So I would suspect that not only is he coaching for his career, but he's also, these players are playing for their careers. Maybe
Sandra's got the answer. Maybe they might have told each other some home truths that day at the Kernos.
Who knows? Good. Maybe. I think Voss too has been coaching a lot more from the boundary line and talking to the players as they come on and off the ground, and that might be his go. Maybe he's a coach that needs to do that and be more effective in that way, and let the assistants do the more strategic work up in the coach's box. And maybe that's where his strength is.
Hang on. We can't be hypocritical here, because we had a crack at him about doing that earlier in the season and he wasn't getting the results. So we then had a crack at him about the fact that he should be up in the box, and
really?
and seeing it from above rather than down at ground level. So let's not be hypocritical here about that. Now, the situation, I believe, is that not only perhaps Voss was pulled aside, but maybe the assistant coaches might have been pulled aside as well and just told, if you're not going to pull your finger out, then piss off. Don't be around this place. But something has clearly changed within the culture of the way they're approaching the game. Comments were made when they interviewed, I think it was Nick Newman, when he came off at quarter time.
Half time.
And he said our intensity around the ball was something that was lacking for a while, and now all of a sudden is there. And look, and I know, look, confidence is a massive thing. And if you've got, and I made the comment earlier on, we're sitting 1.5 games outside the 8. Right? We've got nothing to bloody lose, and we've got everything to gain. Whereas the sides that are in the 8, they've either got to hang on to their positions or they've got to bloody well fight like hell to continue in. So we've got nothing to lose and throw caution to the wind and have a crack. Why not?
Yeah, we're the ones doing the hunting, not being hunted. Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Good.
So, was there anything that disappointed either of you guys today? Like, is there anyone that you thought didn't put in, or you think is in jeopardy of losing their spot?
Well, there's always room for improvement. And you pointed out before, Joe, that you thought that some of our handballs weren't effective enough in some of the contests. Maybe we didn't hit enough of the targets. However, if you recall on a lot of the occasions, if they didn't hit the target, there was someone else there backing them up. So they were prepared to run forward. The one thing that was probably pleasing for mine today is that when Fremantle did go into attack on a couple of occasions, we always had someone on the goal line, whether it be in the square or whatever, that was able to be the safety net. There was on the odd occasion that our backmen still got sucked up the ground a little bit too far, and I thought the ball came over the back on a couple of occasions. So if I needed to be critical, I would say that there was contests. Pleasingly enough, they were one-on-one contests. However, you only have to have a smart forward to be able to create something when the ball's coming over the back like that. So we were running forward. We got caught out a couple of times, but I don't mind that on occasions as long as we learn from it and we're able to adjust and be in a situation. The other pleasing part about it, I thought, was that some of the players were actually taking some responsibility on the ground. I'm talking about directing traffic around here and get over there and do that. There was a couple of times that Fremantle got out on the wing, right? And there was a player that was going to the contest and he was already directing someone else to his opponent back further. All right, he didn't perhaps get there right on time, but at least we were actually still covering that other player. Up until probably 3 or 4 weeks ago, we would have just let that continue on and they would have got an easy possession going into their forward line. At least we were able to maintain some of the pressure where that was concerned. Obviously, our lack of ruckman around the ground is probably disappointing, although I must confess Lewis Young's work, and so Silvani's, to his credit, from throw-ins, I thought was better than the centre bounce efforts. I thought the centre bounce efforts, they were clearly beaten there. But around the ground with the throw-ins and that type of thing, I thought we contested pretty well.
Yeah, they contested well, didn't they? They didn't give it up.
Oh, absolutely.
Centre bounce is just like a big basketball. The tallest man's going to win.
Well, there is a certain skill set now that's actually required to actually do centre bounces. As you know, for years there used to be a ruckman either side of the centre circle and they'd go in, contest the ball, etc., etc. Now, a lot of them try to jump early, which tries to take the opposition ruckman's opportunities away from him when they're actually contesting the centre bounces. So where ruck work is important, and guys like Polly Farmer and John Nichols and these guys that are, they prided themselves on the fact that they were tap ruckmen. Gary Dempsey, for goodness sake, I mean, he was an absolute master at it. And these types of guys,
they used to just about put the ball down the throat of the rover, didn't they? Really?
Well, yes, absolutely. Even Alexander from Fitzroy with Wilson, he used to be able to hit him. Wilson used to be able to run through at full pace and off he'd go. Even old Whale Roberts used to do it okay. I guess
Mike Fitzpatrick and Wow Jones were pretty good at it too in the late 70s and early 80s.
Absolutely, but and the other pleasing part was that in our setup around the ball, particularly in ball ups around the centre, we had someone on safety, which is something which has been lacking for a number of weeks, and we hit the ball running rather than be flat-footed and not in front. Now, if you do recall, Curnow kicked one of his goals from a shitty kick out of a pack situation, and he was dead in front, and he was in front of his opponent and able to take the chest mark, which was dead in front. And look, if I had to be super critical, one of the things that's been my bugbear for a while is that chest marks should not be dropped, and I see too many players, not only in our side but other sides that I've watched other games. I see players missing chest marks. I can understand someone hitting at full pace in front of you with the ball coming at you really hard and low, but in a chest mark situation, you should not drop a chest mark.
Yeah, I thought Harry dropped an easy one in the first quarter, but that's okay.
Can I ask you about? Sorry, Joe.
Go on. No, go on.
I was just going to ask Brownie what he thought of our leaders today. I mean, I personally thought Patrick Cripps was admirable today. I think he played a really good game, and everything I saw him do was quite impressive from a team point of view.
I thought it was the best game he's played for us this year, to be honest with you. He came into it against Hawthorn, but I thought today's game was probably the best he's played. Walsh was very, very impressive when things were tight early. He was like pepper and salt. He was in everything. I thought Shearer stood up. And I thought even some of the lesser names I thought did well. Doherty's game was admirable again. I thought Wiedering's game down back in the interceptions and stuff was good. Is he still going to be able to stamp his authority? Well, I've been super critical of him, so hopefully he can make me words.
Yeah, I thought our leaders were a lot better than Fremantle's today. I thought that Fremantle lacked big time in that area. They didn't really seem to have anyone on the field that was ever going to take the game by the scruff of the neck and put them back into the contest. I didn't see much leadership. I mean, they've got a couple of defenders back there who do their darndest. Probably Ryan was their best player, I thought, and of course their other defender there, what's his name? I'm trying to think of his name now.
The guy with the ponytail.
Yeah, the guy with the ponytail. What's his surname again?
Yeah,
I can't remember. Pierce. Yeah. I thought they try hard to show leadership, but I just think that they lacked it in the areas of the ground that was really going to count. And there was no one up forward at all for them, really. I mean, Walters is probably coming towards the end of his career, but when we got 4 goals up, I thought, that's it. This game's over. They're not going to beat us. Not from here.
We didn't look like we were going to get headed, did we?
No, not at any stage. No.
I was just going to say, we seem to have found a backman in Kemp. I mean, he was a bit down today, but I think he'll be okay long term.
I've been a big fan of Brodie Kemp for a number of weeks. He probably, if I had to be super critical, he was probably out positioned a couple of times today in some contests, but he does just straighten us up in the back line. And look, Boyd does give you some run off half back. And I thought Newman's job today wasn't too bad either.
I thought Newman played a very good game today.
Newman likes saying, do this, do that. So I thought he's starting to get a bit of leadership quality about him. He's a pretty experienced player.
I don't mind if there's 6 leaders in the back line, to be perfectly honest with you. No, that'd be fantastic because that means everyone's covering each other and doing what they're supposed to be doing. But
I thought Sard's game was a lot better today too.
I thought his disposal was a lot better. I thought he was actually be able to be a little bit more creative than what he had been in previous weeks. And
I'd still like to see them playing further up the ground. I just think he's almost a bit wasted down there in the half-back line. I still think he can create more opportunities for us if he was playing on the wing. But anyway, that's my feeling. What about Charlie Curnow? Played his 100th game today. They flew Ed up there just to witness it. Obviously, Ed didn't play today, but good enough to fly up with the team as an emergency. What did you think of Charlie's game today? 15 possessions, 10 kicks, 5 hand passes, took 6 marks, laid 1 tackle and scored 3 goals too. What did you make of his game?
Yeah, I thought it probably wasn't Charlie's best game by any stretch of the imagination. I thought he contributed well. I thought he competed well. He didn't get a real good run and jump at it today, I must admit. There was the odd occasion that he was able to take some telling marks, but I wouldn't have put him. Well, I didn't actually. I'll be perfectly honest with you. I didn't have him rated at all in my assumption of the game. He was serviceable. He and it's funny, isn't it? When you got small forwards and midfielders scoring goals, all of a sudden the pressure comes off the big fellas, and it makes their job a lot easier in contests. I think if they're going to use Cripps in the forward line, I think he's got to learn not to fly against some big fellas, because there's no point in him doing that. He's got to stay on the ground. He can provide a better contest on the ground because of his strength. But definitely, the way that our forward line is looking at this stage, and I'll give Owie his due today. I thought he earned his. Pay. I thought he was at least he contributed, and I don't mind Cottrell on a wing, to be honest with you. Although Doherty, and Akers, I thought played well again. Although Akers, the third quarter, I thought he faded. I don't think he had too much of an influence in the third quarter. His first 2 quarters were admirable. Doherty did what he does for most of the game. And then they were playing. Were they playing Cottrell as a half forward or as a winger?
Both. He was sort of switching between the two.
Yeah, which I don't mind. I don't mind that at all. He's got some genuine pace, and he certainly, to mine, gone.
I thought he was very creative, actually.
Yeah. And look, even our lesser known backman Boyd and Chinotta, I thought that Chinotta.
Chincotta.
Chinotta, I'm thinking of the drink. Chinotto.
No. Think of chin and then think of terracotta tiles. Chincotta.
No, I thought they were serviceable games.
Or if you like, ricotta. That's my favourite, ricotta.
I thought they were serviceable games.
Yeah, they were pretty good. I don't think that anyone will lose their spot in the team next week purely on form or purely because of the way they played today. If anything, it might be because, all of a sudden we get the Conning back in the ruck. So maybe Lewis Young, makes way, or Silvani makes way. Who knows? But I reckon probably Silvani will hold his spot above Young, I would have thought.
I would have thought Lewis Young. The only changes I can see is Lewis, depending if TDK or Pito's fit, is Lewis Young for that. And we all know Kennedy's probably out with the knee.
Yeah.
So,
well, again,
unless McGovern has a cork, he might play with it. He might be able to run it out, but they're the only 3 I can see.
Well, that's the other thing. We've got to replace Kennedy, so you would think that they'll just simply bring in George Hewitt now that Kennedy's out injured, and looks like we'll be out for quite a few weeks with the knee injury. So he'll get his opportunity to go back into the starting lineup. You'd think Hewitt. Other than that, VFL had a big win on the weekend, but against pretty average opposition. But again, the usual suspects, Jackson Binns, they just don't seem to want to give him a start. Played very, very well. And I thought, what's that? Paddy Dow didn't play because he was concussed the previous week, so he didn't qualify to play. But there was some good players. Jack Carroll played a very good game, for example. He's another one that probably deserves his chance to get back in the side at some point. So, yeah, they're the sorts of players that were playing well in the VFL.
Actually,
go, Pete.
sorry, Joe. What I was going to say is, but doesn't this show you when we do actually take some risks and things actually pay off? I mean, so, and I've been saying it for some weeks now, bring some kids in from the twos and give them a chance, give them a go, take some risks for Christ's sake. How are we going to find out if we don't allow them to bloody well show what they've got? And we've got nothing to lose, absolutely nothing.
Ollie Hollins is another one that came back into the VFL team on the weekend.
He's going to struggle to get back in.
Yeah. Well, while you've got Cottrell playing well on the wing, Akers playing well on the wing, Doherty playing well on the wing, he's going to find it hard to get back. But look, I mean, he's only first week back after a long injury, so he'll probably need 2 or 3 games anyway in the VFL.
Well, I'm going to assume that McGovern's out, and if McGovern's out, then Lewis Young will go down back, and TDK will come in for him, and then someone will come in for Kennedy.
That'll be Hewitt, and then we'll probably need a medical or a sub. So maybe someone like Binns, maybe, or Carroll.
Guess what? They'll make it Ed Curnow again.
No,
you watch.
Look at this.
They will. I'm telling you, they'll put him in again.
I don't agree with this. Just give Ed a farewell against West Coast and let us play.
Yeah.
I don't believe in gifting games. I mean, what happens if West Coast come out and beat us, and then everyone's going, "Oh, well, we shouldn't have played Ed Curnow." Sorry, the team is bigger than the individual. Yeah, I love Ed Curnow. He's been fantastic, right? But we saw it with Murphy, and you've got to contribute. I'm sorry, you can put him on as the sub, but what's he going to give you? He's not going to give you anything. He's had his day.
I think what they like about Ed Curnow is they know what they're going to get. He's predictable. He will give you his best effort. No, he will. No, he's reliable in that sense, and he can do a job for you, especially if it's a tagging job. So I think that's what they like about him. With untried young players, inexperienced players, they're probably nervous to play them because they just don't know if they're going to get anything out of the ball.
Well, if you don't play them, you'll never know what you're going to get.
Yeah, right? I think what you'll find is that if and when we get to a position where we can't make finals, then they may experiment a bit more. And they might put a few players out to sort of post-season surgeries and get them to do that sort of thing in advance of the season ending. But while we still have a mathematical chance of making the 8, they're not going to try these young kids as much as you think, Brownie.
Can I make a suggestion? And please, every Carlton supporter out there, don't hang on that. Don't hang your hat on the thought that you're going to make the 8. Right?
No.
Let's get on with each week as it comes, and let's try and approach each week as it's our last week. Right?
Yeah.
So you got to win every week.
It's got to be our last game. So we've got to go hell for leather, right?
Yeah.
And if we are lucky enough to sneak in, so be it. If not, then we've got some learnings from the season. And what annoys me about this is that you have 2 wins on the trot, and you all of a sudden everyone starts to get a bit too carried away with put them in perspective. Put them in perspective, right?
Well, that's right. Yeah.
We've got
anyway.
Gold Coast, Hawthorn, and Fremantle are currently 13th, 16th, and 14th on the ladder. So they're all bottom 6 sides as the ladder sits at the moment. They're the teams that we've beaten. We've beaten them well by 9 and 10 goals each, but nevertheless, they're all bottom 6 teams. What will be interesting now is how we go against Port Adelaide.
Yeah,
and then 2 weeks after that, we'll have to play Collingwood. So they're the 2 big games against the top 2 teams on the ladder. That will show us where we're really at.
Yep.
Then we play St Kilda, who we play.
Well,
Melbourne.
they're stalling, and they haven't been all that impressive.
Gold Coast,
and GWS. So they're all winnable games. But you'd have to say that the Port Adelaide and Collingwood games, they're the ones that'll really test us.
Absolutely. Yeah. They're the informed sides. They're the ones that are actually going to create what the eight's going to look like. So let's get on with the next week. The next week's Port Adelaide. Let's see what we can do.
Let's worry about one at a time. In fact, it was described today, today's game, I should say, Fremantle Carlton, was described as an elimination final of sorts because the loser was effectively going to put the cue in the rack in terms of finals chances are concerned. So I think most people now think that Fremantle pretty much are gone. They've had 7 wins and 9 losses. Any more than 9 losses, and we've still got 7 weeks to go. You can't see them winning 7 weeks in a row, can you? So they're going to have at least another 1 or 2 losses. They're pretty much done.
Yep.
So are Gold Coast. And
so
now you watch the media start jumping all over the coaching positions here. In fact, I think even Justin Longmuir's position is not necessarily guaranteed.
No. Anyway, I think we've spoken enough about the match, so let's get on to the votes. Hopefully this week I got them right.
Indeed.
Brownie.
Okay, yeah. Well, clearly, best on the ground was Sam Walsh. In fact, I'll make a statement now that he'll probably end up being the captain next year. So I've already stripped Cripps of the captaincy, so he will be the next captain of the Carlton football side. For the second week in a row, Harry Mackay, I've given 2 votes to. I thought his work, particularly more so within the forward line, creating opportunities from boundary throw-ins, ball ups around the forward inside 50. I thought his work was a lot more creative than what it has been in the past, and I've been a massive critic of him, as you know. And to our listeners that have probably heard me comment on him before, I've been a massive critic. So he's making me eat my words. Good on you, Harry. My 1 vote goes to Adam Chera. I thought his work consistently over 4 quarters, I thought that was really good. He's now starting to become a little bit of a weapon, given the fact that he's also scoring goals along with his work in the midfield and being creative. I think the beauty about it is that now they've come out from under the umbrella of Cripps. Everyone was looking for him to be the creator. Now these players like Walsh has come back and he's now fully fit, I'd suspect. Interestingly enough, his maturity has improved over the last 3 or 4 weeks. Up until then, the question was asked whether he'd come back an angry young man that wanted to fight everybody and had a distraction rather than get on with actually being a leader within the club. So I definitely see him as the next leader of the football club. So 3 Walsh, 2 Mackay, 1 Chera.
Vince?
I say you've gone exactly the same as Brownie, Jace.
I have. We colluded before the show.
Well, I went for Walsh as well. I thought he was clearly the best man on the ground for all the reasons that have already been mentioned, and great to see him back in top form. I gave Chera my 2 votes. I can't say how impressed I've been this year with Chera. I can't say more how impressed I've been.
He's really stepped it up.
He's really become quite an impressive midfielder. Is he an elite midfielder in the competition? I think he's working his way up to that sort of level. He's not probably there just yet, but another 27 possessions, most of them kicks, and laid 6 tackles and was our top tackler on the ground. Also kicked the goal, so good to see him contributing on the scoreboard. So I gave him my 2 votes. And I thought that our captain deserved the vote today. I thought Patrick Cripps was excellent and showed some great leadership and really brought a lot of his teammates into his play today. Also laid 5 tackles as well. So good to see him play well in front of his home crowd there in Western Australia.
Well,
he might be back there.
I doubt it.
And by the way, can I just say, Brownie, we should be a bit more respectful of our captain than to be using terminologies like strip him of the captaincy. I think maybe if you're going to suggest that we use the word relieve him of the captaincy.
We'll manage him.
I think to say things like that diminishes, how much importance that might have for him as well. I think he's a pretty proud guy, and I don't think he takes the captaincy lightly. Now, we all may have opinions about whether he should be the captain or not be the captain, but I think we should probably say you'd rather relieve him of the captaincy and give it to someone else rather than strip him of the captaincy.
One thing,
because that almost sounds like you're punishing him. Do you know what I mean?
Well, he should be punished from his earlier form, because let me tell you, there's one thing of his game that has improved out of sight in the last couple of 3 weeks, and that is some of his defensive work, particularly when we haven't got the ball, was better than what it has been.
Sure.
He looked lazy. He didn't look interested. And I suggested that they should have rested him or managed him earlier in the year. I still stand by my comment, regardless of whether, that's going to upset some people. But I think if you relieved him, if you want to use that word, of the captaincy, you would find that you could probably get at least another 2.5 years out of him. Without the extra burden of being the leader of the club, so to speak. And there's no have a look at Doherty. Doherty, he was relieved of the captaincy, and
but you wouldn't say he was stripped of the captaincy, would you?
I think it was a medical sub, and more than anything else because of
his health issues.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
So
I think we should just let Cripper concentrate on being Cripper, play his game, win another Brownlow before he retires.
I think we underestimate how much of a decision like that impacts on somebody, and I think to just assume that by stripping him of the captaincy and giving it to Sam Walsh or someone else is going to all of a sudden bring out the best in Patrick Cripps because he's not the captain anymore. I think that's a bit assumptive. That's my personal view. I think it may actually have the reverse effect.
It could. We don't know.
I just think I know him personally, and I know his family, and I think that they don't take it for granted that he's the captain.
No one's saying
but as Brownie says, at times he's witnessed certain things about his play that he feels is not up to scratch for a captain, and that's fine. I don't discount that at all, Brownie. I think he has showed at times where we've been failing as a team that he could do more as a leader. I don't doubt that at all. But I don't know that by stripping him of the captaincy and putting it in those terms is necessarily going to have the desired effect.
As Andy says, might just pay to ask him if he wants it or not. It's probably
I don't know. No captain wants to give up the leadership.
You never know. Anyway, let's move on.
Let's move on.
So Adam Chera is still out in front on 58, and I think he'd be pretty close to a lock for the best and fairest at the club. Sam Walsh missed the first 4 games and is second.
Clear
Sam
second.
Sam Doherty and Charlie Curnow equal third. The scary thing is have a look at the difference between 4th and 5th, it's 35 to 16. So either we are Chera, Walsh, Doherty, Curnow biased, or the rest are just not up to it. But anyway, it is what it is. And now it is time for...
Beautiful kick from Brown. That's a magnificent kick. Look at that. He was inside the centre square when he kicked that for a goal.
And if you have a good look at that photo, you'll see that Brownie's got his football boot studs right into David Dench's back, and he's still got those football boot studs marks in his back still to this day. Did you know that, Brownie?
Well, no, I didn't, but I could imagine that David wouldn't be very happy about that. He was a formidable opponent, David Dench, and
my word,
I respected enormously.
Now, before I put up who is the recipient of this week's brownie points, I just want some people out there to know. People have said, "Oh, Brownie, you're harsh on this bloke. Oh, you got him all wrong." So, Peter, who did you give the brownie points to?
Yeah, who'd you give it to this week, Brett? Oh, my
I
goodness.
gave it to our captain. And the reason why I gave it to our captain is I thought that his work this week was a lot better than what it has been in previous weeks. I didn't put him in the votes. However, I was impressed with his work around the ground and his ability to be able to bring other players in and around him to the contest. So I won't be hypocritical. I am saying that he is deserving of my brownie points this week. And whilst I take your criticism on board, Vince, about the fact that my language might be harsh on occasions, I'm here purely and simply to share my views and have the best interest of this football club at the forefront of my comments. So at the end of the day, it's if he has satisfied me to be elevated into my brownie points, and he's done a good job.
Excellent.
Okay.
Good to see that you can be objective, Brownie. and look, by the way, Joe, you've made another mistake just for something different. And it's a big mistake because you're 25% out. I mean, you put him down as 4 kicks, but he actually got 5.
No, that's I've read it off the stat sheet.
5 kicks and 24 hand passes, I think you'll find.
Well, then you better find that the AFL's app is wrong, because that's what I went off.
All right, no worries. We'll let you off the hook.
Triple check.
I'm looking at the Footy Live app, and it says 5 kicks and 24 hand passes. Anyway, it doesn't matter.
Interestingly enough, one of the things that probably has come to the forefront in the last couple of weeks is that Cripps is now actually standing up in the tackle compared to what he was prior in weeks prior. And as a result of that, he's able to release the ball and he's one of the players that is able to do a full 60 and still be able to get rid of the ball, whether it be by hand or foot or whatever it is. But that at least is pleasing from that aspect.
He seems to have a very strong core and therefore can often break tackles or brush past tackles, can't he? He's very strong in standing up to anyone who's trying to tackle him,
At 6'4", and what does he weigh? Something like about 90 kilos.
Probably something around that, yeah.
Yeah, well, at 6'4" and at 90 kilos, you should be pretty well, pretty strong in that scenario. In his Brownlow year, he was probably breaking them a lot easier than what he is today. Has he slowed up? Definitely. I think his body is starting to shut down a bit, and I think it's one of those things where it comes with wear and tear and stuff like that. So,
exactly.
And my comments in and around that have been well recorded on this show. So it's not as if I'm speaking out of turn.
Yep. No, fair enough. Well, it's good to see you giving him your brownie points for the week anyway.
It is. Let's move on. Sorry?
He deserved
them. That's right. Next week.
Yes. Now, this is
Carlton,
a really interesting game.
Yeah, nice to see that it's at 4:35 p.m. Australian Eastern Standard Time there, Joe.
Yeah, and so on Saturday for a change, which is good.
I'm going to let you do all the stats next week and see how you like it, where I'm still at 1 minute to go tapping away, and you're going, we're in the studio, let us in. So I'm relieving my duties and giving
Listen to him sook now, Brownie, would you?
Yeah. Can I just say, Joe, your mid-season, pre-season is magnificent because you're looking nice and slim. It's just perfect.
I'll put on some weight for you this week. Before you do, Pete, someone put something up before. I can't find it. Oh, this one. So we're going to talk about the ins and outs, and we've already said that, if TDK's fit, we bring him in, and You know, if we think Bam Bam's going to miss. So do you think Hewitt's in our best 22? Yes
At present,
or
no.
No.
At present, no.
Vince, what do you think?
No, I don't think he's been consistent enough to warrant that. I think purely and simply, I think the other players are now starting to step up and assume more of the responsibility through the midfield and stuff like that. They actually tried him as a backman and it failed. I think his work is still not consistent enough to be in the best 22.
Okay.
Are we starting to see one of the reasons why the Sydney Swans let him go? Because they don't let go too many really good players, do they, at Sydney?
Not really.
I mean, we've got two of them. Nick Newman's one and George Hewitt's another. And I think Nick Newman's been far more consistent over a longer period of time. But George Hewitt,
he started
off like a house on fire last year, but he has really come back to the field, and he may very well be joining someone like Zach Fisher in the sort of no man's land territory, because it's hard to know where his best position is at the moment. I mean, you'd think it's in the midfield, but he's just not performing this year to the level that we need.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, Joe, no, I don't think he's in our best 22 right at the moment based on how he's playing. But I think he'll now get his opportunity with Kennedy having injured his knee today, and I think that they will give him that opportunity in the next couple of weeks until Kennedy comes back.
Well, it could be his make or break, couldn't it, really, when you think about it?
Yeah, it could be.
If he doesn't perform and that sort of thing, he could find himself being traded at the end of the year.
Potentially.
Yeah.
Righto, Joe?
So
what are we going to do? Give our predictions about next week, are we?
Yeah, we will. And let me write them down so that I can then get to the tipping. So, Peter?
Yes, this is going to be an interesting game, guys.
Peter's tipping. I'll put you down for a draw then. Is that right, Pete?
No. I'll go out on a limb on this one. I'm actually going to tip Carlton to win it. I think Port Adelaide are just about due for a drop, and I think they got a bit of a scare today, but Gold Coast wasn't able to go on with it. The one thing that I do base my comments in and around is that now that the forwards are starting to show some form, I think Port Adelaide are going to struggle to actually be able to match up properly on them. I believe that, similarly, this is, for mine, I think this one's going to be a real battle of the midfielders. I reckon Bell Pepper and
Rosie Butters.
Yeah, Rosie Butters and the kid that they the young
Francis.
Vaughan Francis. Sorry, yes. I think that's really going to test our guys. I think we will have possibly a slight edge where that's concerned, only because of the experience side of things, and I'm hoping that that'll come to the forefront. Although Butters and Rosie are very, very clever players from what I've seen, and they're responsible for a lot of their forward thrusts and stuff like that. I mean, Big Charlie in front of goal for Port Adelaide's going to be that's going to be an interesting matchup.
Battle of the two Charlies, Charlie Curnow for us and Charlie Dixon for them.
It's possible.
At opposite ends of the ground.
Absolutely it could be. So I for mine, the only question mark is whether we have a ruckman that comes in and is able to contest. Their ruckman's only a young bloke, and he's fairly clever. He seems to be a pretty good ruckman, this kid, and he certainly gives their midfielders and their small forwards every opportunity to be able to take advantage of scoring opportunities. So for mine, I reckon Carlton. I picked Carlton against the Dockers by only about 15 points. I don't think that will be as far as I want to go out with this one. I think that Carlton might have it in a close one, and I reckon I'd say I'll give it 6-9 on that.
Okay.
Okay.
I think Lou is living here in Bangkok and smoking a lot of the weed that's out there. Carlton by 10 goals.
Yeah.
Well, if
Yeah,
someone
there you
had
go.
said to you Carlton by 10 goals today, you'd have told them that they were smoking something as well. But we won by, 9 goals, didn't we, roughly?
Yes.
Yeah, anyway, we did.
So you're
okay,
going for Carlton, Brownie. You're going to go out on a limb, are you?
I'm going to go out on a limb.
Vince?
Well, I'm that far behind. I've got to go out on a limb myself. Now, I just want to state I'm not hoping for this result, but I'm tipping this purely so I can catch up to these blokes. I'm going to go for Port Adelaide. I think they've got a fantastic recent record at this stadium, Marvel Stadium. I think they've won their last, is it 9 or 10? I can't remember.
11
I think it's something like
isn't
that, or something along those lines. So the venue doesn't hold any fears for them. They're on a streak of 13 wins in succession, I think, isn't it? Yeah, 13 out of 14 have been in a row. And while I think we can certainly take it up to them for a big part of the game, I think in the end they'll just show us how much of a genuine premiership threat they are, and they'll beat us.
Okay.
So I'm saying Port Adelaide by 18 points.
Okay, well, we didn't. So I'm going to go for Port Adelaide because I think they are way too quick and too skillful for us. We make far too many errors in turnovers. And as I said earlier in the day, I think a better team will punish us. We've played nobodies. So it's going to be close. I think the venue may hold a little bit for them, although you never know how many of the feral supporters they'll let across the border, to sit there and barrack from. A bit like Collingwood, they might be running out of parole officers to bring with them. But, so
now,
if anyone
Brownie, all of that you just heard from Joe is absolute rubbish. He's only going for Port so that he's going for the same team as me so that I can't catch up to him.
No.
So I actually think in these future weeks, you, the leader, should be saying who you're tipping first.
I had it written down first.
And no, I don't care. You tell everyone who you're tipping first. Then whoever's second can go next, and whoever's last can go last.
Okay, so let's look at the tipping board. Oh,
there
look
you
at
go.
that. I'm 2 in front of Vince.
So you should have gone for your tip first today, Joe.
Okay, I'll go first. Port. Who do you want? Who do you want, Vince?
Brownie's going for Carlton, and I'm going for Port. So if Port happens to win, you're now going to have a two-tip win over both of us. You'll go to 10, and Brownie will stay on 8, and I'll go up to 8.
Yep.
I don't know.
He's very strategic, Brownie. He wants the big prize at the end of the year for coming first.
What's that?
another
trip to Bangkok.
Another Bangkok.
Lana's been watching Ted Lasso. Believe.
Yeah, righto.
Lana, I am not copying Vince. Vince is copying me.
And by the way, I've got to say a big hello to Lana, who I saw at a lovely dinner last night at North Seafood Bar and Grill, which is the one owned by
this date.
Yes, which is the restaurant owned by Ange Christou. I didn't just see Lana. In fact, I was there with Rocco and his partner Tan, and Lana and Peter and Nick and Carl's, of course, who organised it all. So it was fantastic to be there in everyone's company. We had a lovely seafood dinner, highly recommend it to anyone who's out in the Northcote area or wants to go to a lovely seafood restaurant. It's superb food and service.
Well, there you have it. All right. So at this stage, we're going to bid a fond farewell to Peter. He doesn't want to get involved in our frivolities. He's way too serious.
No, rubbish. No. He started with us from the start of the show. He can stay right till the end tonight. All right.
So we will. Okay.
Let's let him stay on right through to the end, Brownie.
I've got to show you guys a couple of things first.
Okay.
This morning I went out, or the other day, sorry, I went out for breakfast. This was before I got sick, And this is what
this might be the reason why he got sick.
No. This was last week. I had this for last week's show. This is what I had for breakfast.
Oh, look at that! A
How's
lovely
that for a bit of
omelette.
art?
That's fantastic. A Snoopy doll. What is it?
Yeah.
Rice with a
It's
bit.
rice with the seaweed. This was a Japanese place. It was rice with seaweed for the eyes, nose, and the ears, and an omelette. So
Wow.
And an omelette over the top. How nice is
That's
that?
impressive.
It was and it was only $4, and I thought it was worth $4 just to live at the art. Some poor lady out the back is, making this bloody thing.
I can't wait to see their Charlie Brown invention.
Well, that's what I said to her. She didn't know what I was talking about. They only know Snoopy. So anyway,
Snoopy, yes.
Snoopy. And I thought I'd bring in a few memes of the week just to have a bit of fun.
Yeah,
So
why not?
Here's a couple for you. This one's for you, Vince.
Yeah,
I still can't believe Ed got a sex change so he could play from the women's tees.
Very clever. I'll tell you one thing, Joe. I'm having an absolutely sensational experience watching the Women's US Open from that wonderful golf course, Pebble Beach, on the west coast of America. And for any golf lovers out there, watch the Women's Golf Open. It is a fantastic tournament. And let me tell you, if there's one sport where the girls do just as well as the guys in terms of how they can hit the ball and how accurately they can hit it, watch the girls. They're fantastic to watch.
They will. And next to that, there's a meme that got put up by Chris Broad, and he got asked by the International Cricket Council to pull it down straight away, where it says, Stuart Broad has got me. What's that? Stuart Broad has got me out. Stuart Broad has got me out. It's supposed to be Bart Simpson. And
right.
Apparently he got into a lot of trouble from the ICC with that.
Well, Chris Broad is Stuart Broad's father, and Chris Broad used to play cricket for England, 25, 30 years ago, I think you'll find.
Yeah.
Maybe even more than that.
Something like that.
Actually, that reminds me of one other person I forgot to give a shout out to as well.
Sorry, I didn't know this was a tribute.
Dinner.
I didn't know this was a tribute show.
Hang on. No, he was at the dinner. I don't want him to miss out. Beachy, your friend and mine, Chris Beach. He was also there. So, in fact, not only was he there, I also saw him at the VFL game at Coburg on Saturday afternoon, which was a really nostalgic experience as well. Seeing, I used to follow Coburg. I used to live in Coburg. Brownie used to play for Coburg Football Club back in the day.
I did.
And was back out at Coburg City Oval.
Yes.
Was back out at Coburg City Oval on Saturday to watch Coburg and Carlton reserves go for it in the VFL. And Carlton had a comfortable win in the end. But geez, it was great to be there on Saturday afternoon. And Paul Sebastiani turned up as well. So big shout out to Paul.
Vince, two things. Is this true?
Vince had a what?
A dick donut for dessert.
Oh,
my God.
Oh, no. Lana,
Vince.
You can't go saying things like that without explaining yourself. We had these little Greek, I forget what the names are now. The Greek,
isn't it?
Greek balls.
No,
are.
Yeah.
They're like little donut balls, right?
Yeah. I know.
And
they're
one
very
of them,
nice with honey.
One of them was,
with honey?
I don't know if they did it on purpose, but one of them was shaped like all the others, but all of a sudden they had a long stalk with it as well. So it sort of resembled a certain part of the male anatomy that Lana's referring to.
And Vince, since you're giving shout-outs, right, I'm going to give a shout-out to the lovely Tanya.
Oh,
because you failed to
nice.
do so. Even though she's an Essendon supporter. Hello, Tanya.
Yes.
I hope you're
Hi,
well.
Tanya. I hope you're pleased with your team's win today.
Keep
Goodness
finding
me.
those people that don't buy the tickets.
Rocco was giving me heaps last night at dinner because of all of the times that I'm out at the football with Tanya with my Essendon cap on. Well, it's not my Essendon cap, it's her Essendon cap that she forces me to wear.
It's yours.
No, it's not mine. I can promise you it's not mine. But, I cop a lot of stick for that. So I do it purely to make her happy, but he reckons, no, it's unacceptable. It's rubbish. You didn't just do it as a once-off. You've been doing it time and time again. He's not happy with me.
It's okay, Vince. You can come out of the closet, okay? It's 2023.
Yes, all right, Joe.
So anyway, Peter, I don't know if you normally watch this end bit of the show, but we have
No, not
something.
normally.
Well, you're probably lucky, right? Because we have something that's called. So Vince he's a trotting aficionado, right?
Yeah, really good one.
He's had about 15 bets and everything's run second. Proof.
I don't think I've had a win. I don't think I've had a win since before the operation I had in May, Brownie. So I really desperately need a win. I got another one that came second last week. Cherry on the cake.
Last week, cherry on the cake came second. So maybe, Vince, you should start not backing the win or maybe the place. So your bet this week is...
You said go hard or go home, so I've been going for the win every time.
Well, that's what I would do, but anyway. So the bet this week is...
Yes. We're going to a lovely town called Young in New South Wales. And it's on Tuesday, the 11th of July, which... I happen to remember right now is Brett Ratton's birthday, but anyway, that's I think he turns 52 on Tuesday. We're going to back number one, seeing he played such a good game today, and he even got brownie points. Captain Braveheart, number one, which I think is appropriate as a nickname for our captain Patrick Cripps. He's certainly a brave player, and from the pole position, I'm hoping he can lead all the way over there at Young on Tuesday night. So this is race 5. I think it's somewhere around 7 o'clock, is it, Joe? What is it, 7:10?
Yeah, 7:10.
7:10 p.m. on Tuesday night at Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Okay, yeah.
So,
Young's in New South Wales, isn't it?
Young is in country New South Wales, correct?
New South Wales, yeah, okay.
Yep.
So to all the people out there, there's another loss for you. So all of just show you how good we are, Brownie. Look, we started with $40. We've had to put another $60 in. He's lost $175.
And we've got 25 bucks left.
We also had some wins.
Yeah,
what's our balance? 25.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, if this horse wins at 4-1, we've got our money back.
What are you putting on it? $5 the win or 10?
No, actually, we won't be because we're not putting all $25 out. We were putting $10 for the win.
10.
We've got to have some left in reserve for the remaining rounds. I've still got 7 weeks to go. Plus the finals. Joe. Are we gonna keep going through the finals even if Carlton doesn't make it?
We're going through to the trade period.
Oh, really?
Oh.
That's far.
We'll see what happens.
I think we'll go through to the finals, but
Vince, I think
we might stop. We might stop on the Sunday after the grand final.
We'll take it 1 week at a time. I don't
we'll have to see if Brownie's available or whether he's due for his month-long holiday in September at great expense to the management.
Don't forget next week, guys, I'm not going to be here. So
that's right.
And
we will have a special guest replacement for you for just that week, Brownie. So enjoy your week off.
If he does a good job, you can manage me if you want to. Or strip me of the position.
Your form doesn't warrant you being put to the reserves.
I love it. Yeah, well.
Anyway,
Brownie, I'll tell you right now, if you get stripped of your position, I'll be the one to announce it.
Oh God. Anyway, well,
I'm only kidding. It was good fun.
That brings us to the end of the show, fellas. So, just a quick thing. Thank you, Peter, for coming on board. I'm sorry I got you on at the start, but hey, now you see the stupidity that happens at the end. Who else? Thank you, Vince, for coming in.
Pleasure. Thanks, Brownie. As insightful and expert comments as usual.
And since you're here, we might as well keep going. So remember, these are the upcoming shows. On Tuesday night on Blue Abroad, we've got Rocco, Paolo. Who's the special guest?
No,
Vince, do you know?
Paul is actually going to be away for 2 or 3 weeks now. He's taken 2 or 3 weeks off. And Mars is not back yet. So guess who's going to be on this week?
You.
Me. I'm going to be on with Ramo. Remember when we had Ramo on from the United Arab Emirates? Well, he's in town. He's in town, and Rash, of course, Richard Rash Hussain advised us that he was in town. So Ramo is actually going to be joining me and Rocco on the couch for the Jumper Punch this week. And
That's good.
don't miss out on that.
Night?
That's Tuesday night, 7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. Wednesday night, we have on this channel, the Jumper Punch channel, the Forever Rivals. So we've got Essendon, Collingwood, Carlton, and Richmond represented, and that's a bit of a laugh, a bit of a.
Well, all 4 teams have won this week, so no one can rib each other about the loss, but they'll all be on the winning side of the ledger.
Followed by Legends of the Jumper Punch, and I hear everyone asking, "Who's the special guest this week?" Well, let me show you.
Big thank you to Sniff Northland. Get down here and try it out. Best sniff in the place, in the business. So thank you, and to the Jumper Punch Tuesday night. Make sure you tune in and watch it.
Yep,
Lance
Big Red.
Whitnell.
Big Red, Lance Whitnell in his own territory there in the northern suburbs. Came out to Northland, out to Schnitz, and had a great time with him.
I actually played with his father. And
yes.
Does any one of you two know what his nickname was?
Who, Lance or Graham?
Graham.
Graham Whitnell, who wore number 7 for Carlton back when you played, Brownie. What was his nickname? Tell me.
Papa.
Papa. Why do you have that nickname?
Papa Whitnell. Well, I think it was because of the Smurfs or something like that. I think, or he was just old and he was just up there in age. I'm not sure, but anyway, I used to call him Papa Whitnell. I ran into Graham at a reunion, and I said to him, I said, "Papa, good to see you. I haven't seen you for 30 odd years." He said, "Shit, I haven't heard that name for ages." Everyone used to know him as Graham.
Well, unfortunately and sadly, we actually lost Graham
That's
2
right.
years ago now. So, yeah.
He came from Maryborough.
He did. He
originated from
John Nichols' territory, Maryborough. So
absolutely. That's
produced a lot of good footballers over the years.
That's where I played with junior footy in the Maryborough District League.
You did indeed, Brownie.
Vince, you've started this thing on this donut.
What? Tell me what these donuts are called.
I don't know, but
you fed it to someone as well. Yeah, I did.
Vince was a bit apprehensive cutting the tip off.
What, you didn't circumcise it?
Did you circumcise it?
No, I. Oh, geez, let's not go there.
I didn't know you were Jewish.
Let's just say when I stuck my fork in it, I had this internal pain within my abdominal region.
Oh,
anyway. So listen. So just recapping the shows: Tuesday night, Jumper Punch with Rocco, Vince, and Ramo. There's a mouthful. Wednesday night on the Jumper Punch channel, you've got Forever Rivals, followed by the Lance Whitnell interview.
And 7 o'clock and 8 o'clock, respectively.
Yeah. And next Sunday, we'll be back at 7:30 with
back to our normal time. That's right.
Yeah, back to our normal time. Don't forget to like and share on Facebook and YouTube. Remember, we rely on you people, and we do this for you people. So on behalf of Peter and Vince and myself, I'd like to say good night, and I'm going to end with, Go Blues. And I'm
Don Brownie, give us a big Go Blues. 1, 2, 3.
Go
Blues.
And I'm going to end with...
You down, we're the only team old Carlton knows. With all the champions they like to send up, we'll keep our end up, and they will know that they've been playing against the famous old dark blue.